Right now, while you're watching this, there's a hidden voice inside your head. It's running your day. It decides the decisions you make, the prices you charge, and the conversations you walk away from or stay in too long. But most people never notice it's there because they think the voice is just them talking to themselves. However, there's actually a concealed voice beneath it. One that almost no one ever learns to hear, let alone change it. And the moment you learn to hear and control that voice, you've got the lever for everything else. Because it's the source code that every behavior on the surface runs on. Change what it's saying, and the rest of your body and thoughts move with it automatically. At that point, success stops becoming something you chase. It becomes inevitable. I know this because it's how I helped Taylor Ross go from $9,000 months to $42,000 months. And Zach Klassen jumped from $60K to $70K right after almost burning the whole thing down. The thing that moved first, every single time, was the way they were speaking to themselves when no one was listening. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what to listen for, exactly what to change, and what happens to your life when you actually do it. Think about what just happened in the last 60 seconds. While I've been talking, there's been a second track running underneath. Maybe it agreed with me. Maybe it argued. Maybe it told you you've heard this before. Whatever it said, that voice is the thing I want you to pay attention to first. Because here's the strange thing about that voice. Most people, for their entire adult life, have assumed it was them. They never separated the listener from the speaker. They never created the half second of distance that lets you hear the sentence as a sentence instead of as the truth. That distance is the whole shift. Hearing the voice as a voice, not as you, is the entire first move. And once you hear it, you start to notice it isn't random. It's the surface of a story. A story you've been carrying long enough that it stopped feeling like a story. It feels like reality. It feels like math. It feels like this is just how things are. Let me make this concrete. Picture someone who, for the last 2 years, has been quietly saying to themselves, "I'm so close. I just need one more month." They believe they're stating intent. If you repeat that sentence under your breath every morning for 2 years, though, and it stops being a statement of intent, it becomes an identity. You become a person who is almost there, not someone who has arrived, someone who is almost there. And that self proves itself every single day. The deal stalls 1 week before close. The launch slips. The opportunity goes to the person who said yes faster. The reframe to sit with is this. The sentence isn't describing your reality. It's constructing it in real time. The internal voice isn't a report on what's happening. It's the source code of what happens next. And almost nobody is paying attention to it. So before we touch on any of the mechanics, the move is hearing it. Catching the sentence as a sentence. Once you can do that, everything I'm about to walk you through is going to change your life. At this point, a fair question I hear is, I've tried this. I've done affirmations. I've said the things in the mirror. Why hasn't it worked? I want to answer that directly because if I don't, the rest of this video will get filed under more positive thinking and you'll just close the tab. Affirmations operate on the conscious mind. The sentence running you lives in the subconscious. That's why standing in front of a mirror saying, "I am wealthy," doesn't move the needle. There's something more important happening though. Every affirmation is, by design, an argument. You're standing there saying one thing. Underneath, a quieter voice is saying the opposite. "I am abundant." Right after the quieter voice says, "No, you're not." And that quieter voice has been training for 30 years. It wins almost every time. The yogis, they had a name for these patterns. Samskaras. Emotional grooves that got worn into you and then never got felt all the way through. So the body and the mind, they hold on to them. Anything similar that comes up in your life later pulls them right back up. You can stack 10 new sentences on top of a samskara, and the samskara will still produce the result. That's the structural problem. Positive thinking adds a coat of paint over a structural crack. It looks fine for a while. Then the crack comes back through. And you're left thinking you didn't try hard enough, when actually the tool was never meant to reach that depth. What does work isn't addition, it's replacement. You're not stacking new sentences on top of old ones. You're replacing the sentence that was running with the one you actually choose. And the new sentence has to be one your conscious mind can agree with today. Not a fantasy version of you in 5 years. The smaller, more honest sentence is almost always the one that moves. I'll give you an example. A client who'd hit record months in their business and then went 15 days without signing a single client. We traced down what was running underneath, and the sentence was, "I don't want to be broke like my parents." Stated as motivation, but functioning as identity. But that became their thinking system. The filter in your brain that decides what you notice was scanning the world for being broke. Every interaction got filtered through that. They were missing every opportunity to be successful because the part of their brain that finds opportunities was busy looking for evidence of lack. A bigger affirmation wasn't going to fix that. The sentence had to be replaced at the layer where it lived. Once it was, the 15-day drought ended that week. So the issue isn't you're not positive enough. The issue is you've been working on the wrong floor. So if the leverage isn't at the affirmation, where is it? It's at the start of a chain that almost no one has been shown. 5 steps: words, story, identity, action, result. Step 1 is words. The sentences you speak out loud and the ones you say silently to yourself all day. Most of them you've never written down, and you wouldn't recognize half of them if I read them back to you. They're the raw material of everything that follows. Step 2 is story. Sentences repeated long enough harden into a story about who you are. Say, "I'm so close," every day for 2 years, and you're not telling yourself you're close anymore. You're telling yourself you're someone who is almost there. The story is the residue of the words. Step 3 is identity. The story stops being something you tell yourself and becomes something you just are. Identity isn't a feeling. It's a settled story you stopped questioning. Once it's settled, you stop noticing it's there. It just feels like the floor under your feet. Step 4 is action. Identity constructs action. People act consistently with who they believe themselves to be. A coach who is someone who almost succeeds takes a different sales call than a coach who is someone who closes. Different language, different posture, different ask, same call, same offer, different self, different outcome. And step 5 is the result. Results are the visible echo of all 4 upstream layers. Trying to change a result without changing the upstream is like trying to change a shadow by painting the wall. This is the part most people get backwards. They look at the result, decide they need a new strategy, build a new plan, and run harder. They're working at step 5. But the actual leverage is at step 1. Let me make this concrete. I had a client who looked on paper identical to 1,000 other coaches, but they went from $9,000 months to $42,000 months in a span that surprised both of us. And the thing that moved first wasn't the strategy. It wasn't the funnel. It was the sentence. The story that had been running quietly underneath shifted, and through it, the identity, and through that, the action, and through that, the result. Once you can see this chain, the question becomes operational. What does the actual rewrite look like? My tagline for what I do is 2 words: rewrite reality. The reason I use that exact phrase is because of the word abracadabra and what it actually means. It's Aramaic. It translates roughly to "with my word I create." You've been doing this unconsciously your entire life. The job from here is doing it on purpose. The rewrite is 4 steps. They look small written down. They are not small in practice. Step 1, you title the story and write it out. Most people have never seen the words running their lives. They've only spoken them. There is a giant difference between a sentence that lives in your mouth and the same sentence on a page in front of you. Pick the surface level statement that's been running. The thing you say to yourself when you're tired, defending, doubting. I dropped the ball on that call. I'm so close. People like me don't make a lot of money. Whatever it is, title it. Write the story underneath it. Where it shows up. When it fires. What you do when it does. Step 2, you're going to read that story out loud at a conversational pace. Reading silently isn't enough. It allows our brain to go otherwhere. The story is made up of words spoken. The way you change it is the same way you built it. Out loud, at normal speed first. Hear yourself say the thing you've been saying to yourself for years. Step 3, read it again at 80% speed. This is where most of the work happens. When most people speak, they never see their own words. When they write, they finally see them. When they slow down, they see them more, and they finally sit in them. Read your own story at 80% of normal pace. The pacing forces you to actually hear it. You stop reading at the speed your mind wants you to skim, and you start hearing the sentence as a sentence. Step 4, read it again at 80% speed with a breath in between every line. Take a natural pause wherever it makes sense. The breath is the part nobody includes. The reason it matters is that the story is held in the body, not just the head. Up until you breathe it out, the story has been running circles in your head, fast, on a loop, in your face. The breath lets you separate from it. It lets you actually feel where it sits in your body instead of being inside of it. What happens at this stage is the part I find most beautiful in this work. When the rewrite actually installs for someone, they finally hear themselves for the first time in a long time, if not ever. The line they've been saying for years stops being them and starts being a sentence. And that's the entire shift. Then comes the question I ask after step 4. What does this story mean to you? What does it mean now? Most of the time, the answer to the second question is some version of a negation. It means I'm not enough. It means I'll never be safe. It means I don't deserve. That negation is the leverage point. You take that negation, the don't, the not, and you flip it into a truth statement. Not an affirmation, a truth statement you could actually say out loud about a friend you trust with a straight face today. If you can't say it about a friend, the sentence is still arguing with the old story. Find the smaller, more honest version. Almost every time, that version is the one that moves. That truth statement is what you speak in the moments the old line used to fire. Out loud, to yourself, to your partner, on the call, in the car. Words have to be spoken. Thought is too quiet to compete with what's already running. This is not affirmations 2.0. This is reverse engineering the exact mechanism that built the version of you that's currently here and using that mechanism on purpose to build the version that's next. Once the rewrite is in place and the chain upstream is running cleanly, the results start showing up the way the title of this video promises: inevitable. I want to explain why that word isn't hyperbole. When the words upstream are right, the identity holds. When the identity holds, action becomes consistent without willpower. Consistent action over enough time is what every result is built out of. There's no version of this game where someone consistently shows up as the version of themselves they're trying to become, and the result doesn't follow. So success becomes inevitable, not because the universe rewards good thoughts. It becomes inevitable because the version of you running the new sentence shows up differently every single day. And a different person every day produces a different result and a different life within months. The only thing that ever has to be true is that the person at step 1 is the right person. Steps 2 through 5 take care of themselves. The signal you're doing it right is much quieter than people expected. Most viewers will be looking for fireworks, looking for some big motivated feeling. The actual signal is that the trigger doesn't fire. The old sentence comes up in your head and you hear it as old, not as you. The action that used to require massive effort starts happening with normal effort. The sales call you would have stalled on, you make. The price you would have discounted, you don't. The conversation you would have avoided, you start. None of that feels heroic. It just feels like a Tuesday or a Wednesday or a Monday or a Thursday. The same client I mentioned earlier, the one who'd gone 15 days without signing a single client. After Broke Like My Parents was rewritten, started a hockey stick climb. Got their critical thinking back. Started operating like a CEO again. Not because they pushed harder, because the sentence underneath shifted and everything downstream followed. The closing reframe is this: you don't have to become someone new. You have to stop saying the sentences that were keeping the old self in place. The version of you you've been trying to become has been in there the whole time, waiting on the words. Speak to yourself like the person you're trying to become, and within enough time, the gap closes. Not because you faked it, because language is how you actually got there. What we just walked through is the daily practice, the layer you can change today. But the bigger question, the one that decides whether the change actually holds, is how do you reinvent the entire identity underneath the words? So click this video here, because I walked through the full mechanism start to finish. The reason most attempts at reinvention snap back inside a month, what to do instead, and how some of the people I've worked with have moved through complete identity shifts in weeks, not years. The next layer down. I'll see you there.